Welcome to class. How's everyone doing? Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Put a 2 in the chat if you can see me. And put a 3 in the chat if you don't care. All right. Well, today we're going to be learning a lesson on the simple present. We've done this lesson before. If you just check the playlist for emerging, you will find that lesson there. But I do know a lot of people still needed some more support when it comes to mastering, especially the verb tenses in simple present. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. We can get into the slides. And we're talking about mastering the simple present. So as you may know, by the way, if you can see those slides, you can definitely put a 4 in the chat for me, please. So that's a 1 if you can hear me, a 2 if you can see me, and a 3 if you don't care, and a 4 in the chat if you can see my slides. So as we mentioned before in the last video, the simple present tense is your most basic grammar. It's your most basic language. It's your most simple and effective way to communicate. So if you have a habit, for example, drinking coffee or going to work, something that you do on a regular basis, that's a routine. If you want to say something that is true in the summertime, it's very warm outside. That is a fact. So if you want to say something that is true, if you have a routine that you do, I go to school every day, I go to class every day. If you have a habit, I love drinking tea, I love drinking coffee. All of that is the simple present tense. And it's something that if you were born in this country speaking English, this country being America, if you speak English, this is something that we use instinctively, meaning it's a natural instinct of ours to speak in the simple present tense. But for English language learners, it can be kind of tough trying to get the hang of it. So as we see in these slides, the simple present tense is essential for everyday communication. It's what we need to convey information about our lives, about our activities every day. And like I said, if you want to say anything that is deemed a fact or something that is true, the simple present is what allows us to effectively relay that information to people. What makes the simple present so tricky for English language learners is the present continuous or the present perfect tenses. For example, the present continuous would be I am eating lunch, something that is happening now in the present and is something that will continue to happen. I am eating lunch. It's happening in the present continuous. We can also say present progressive. But the simple present tense, that same sentence or that same statement would be I eat lunch. Another problem is the subject verb agreement. You have to be sure when you're using simple present that the verb, the ending of the verb is going to match the subject. And even a lot of native speakers struggle with this. A lot of natural American born citizens who were born speaking English, who went to school in English, a lot of them struggle with this. Which one do you think is the correct answer? Is it he goes to school or he go to school? He go to school. She be going to school, right? It's not correct English. So which one do you think it is? You could put that in the chat if you're here. Sorry if you were here and I didn't pay attention to you, just looking at the slides. All right. He goes to school. He goes to school would be the correct response or the correct statement when it comes to this example. And he go to school would be incorrect. All right. And let's not forget about irregular verbs like go, goes, or have, has. Examples like that can throw you off because, we add ed to verbs that are in the past, but English has something called irregular verbs where we do not add an ed to them. So go and goes would be an example of that, and have and has would also be an example of that. But we're going to have a lot of activities today that are going to try to make us get a solid grasp of when to use each one. So let's talk about the fundamentals a little bit. The structure of the simple present tense is pretty simple. That's why they call it simple present. All right, it's straightforward. For most of the subjects out there, we use the base form of the verb. I, the subject, walk, the verb. You, the subject, you walk. We, the subject, we walk. They, the subject, and they, them over there, they walk. So notice the verb walk, the action, it stays the same. Let me go back. I'm sorry about that. It stays the same. We don't need to add anything to it for I, you, we, and they. But if we're talking about third person singular subjects, that would be he, she, and it. We have to add an S. And depending on the verb, sometimes we have to add an ES. So he walks. He is a third person singular subject. I is a first person. You, second person. We would be first person because we're including ourselves. And they is third person, but not singular. They is actually a third person plural subject. So that's why they can fall into the same category with the verb as we, you, and I. But again, for singular subjects, he, she, and it, we must add that S. He walks or she walks. He fixes, she fixes. So again, quick review, subject plus the base form of the verb. And then we have a subject verb agreement. I, you, we, they play. I play basketball. You play tennis. We play baseball. They play soccer. That verb play is the base form of the verb. It's the most basic way to say that action. And then we get to third person, singular, not third person plural like they. Third person singular, he, she, it plays. So example, I eat breakfast. She reads books. All right. So earlier we talked about the simple present being able to use us using simple present basically to describe habits. I walk, there goes the verb, to work. So if you have a habit of walking to work, saying I walk to work would be simple present. He goes to the gym. Notice here we had to add es to go because he is the subject, but it's a sorry, not first person. He is the subject, and it is a third person singular. He goes to the gym. And we talked about simple present allowing us to display facts, something that is true. At 100 degrees, water boils. So, to say that in the most simplest way, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. So, it helps us understand actions and it helps us understand what is true. Then we have the formation of questions and negatives. So, using do or does and not for the negatives. And for the questions, we use do and does. Do you like coffee? If you were to answer that in simple present tense, you would say, I drink coffee, or I like coffee. Does she play soccer? How would you answer that in simple present tense? She plays. We have to add an S after the verb. She plays soccer. And here's some examples of the negatives. I don't like tea. That really means I do not like tea. But we say it quickly in America. We like to say don't 9 times out of 10, more often than not. We like saying don't instead of do not. But in formal language, of course, you will see do not. But regular everyday conversations, informally with your friends or family, we're using don't. I don't like tea, or I don't like coffee. You don't play soccer. We don't like coffee. They don't play soccer. Notice I, you, we, and they. He doesn't play basketball. Now we get into the he, she, and it. So instead of don't, we now have to say doesn't or does not. He doesn't like coffee. She doesn't play soccer. All right. Let me know in the comments if you have a question about that. We're going to keep on going. So we have some activities here to help us practice. The more of these that you do, the more practice, repetitions, and sets that you do, the better you get at it. And before you know it, you will master the simple present. So we have some fill in the blanks here. You're going to put the correct form of the verb and then try to create some sentences using the prompts. All right. And I would love to hear your daily routines also in the chat or the comments. If you could just tell me what are some of your daily routines. And if you can write that in the simple present, I would certainly appreciate that. Again, we said the simple present tense. We're going to drill you with this just to make sure you master it before we get into our activities. It's used to talk about routines, things that you do on a regular basis. I drive to work. You take the bus to school. Those are routines. Also, we talked about habits, facts, things that are true, and general truths. General truths and facts, those two basically mean the same thing, something that is true. All right, so here's another example of a routine. I wake up at 7 a.m. every day. Here's an example of a fact. The earth revolves around the sun. Scientific fact based on NASA people, people who like to study astronomy. She likes chocolate. That would be an opinion instead of a fact, something that she enjoys. All right, so how do we form this simple present tense? We have positive statements, you can have negative statements, or you can have questions. All those fall under the category of simple present tense. So we have the base form of the verb. For example, eat. You have the subject, I, and then you have the noun, I eat lunch. But if we're talking about he, she, or it, we have to add an S. She drinks coffee. And then you have our negative statements. That's when we use do not slash does not, or don't and doesn't. I don't like spicy food. You don't like spicy food. We don't like spicy food. They don't like spicy food. If this is too easy for you, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong class. And if you're still here, even though that this is easy and you're watching, thank you very much. Maybe you could just drop in the comments some tougher examples, or maybe a future lesson that you would like to learn and you would like us to work on. But this is for my entering and emerging students. It's just a pop-up class, and we're learning about simple present. I had a few students telling me that they needed some more practice on it, and here we are. Even though they may, let me see, let me check the chat real quick. Yeah, even though they may not be here, um, this lesson's for you. Probably working when you get off work. You can definitely catch the replay of this, okay? And don't forget to put your name in the comments for your attendance. So now we have questions. We use do or does. Do you like pizza? Do I like pizza? Do we like pizza? You're going to notice something different as I go through these questions. Do they like pizza? Now, when I get to he, she, and it, what do I have to do different? When I'm asking the question, what do I have to do that's different? Exactly. I have to say does. Does he like pizza? Does she like pizza? Does it like pizza? And if we're talking about my dogs, yes, they definitely love pizza. So we have some real life examples here. What do you do in the morning? What do you do when you wake up? What's your morning routine? What does it look like? Some people can say, I wake up at 6 a.m. and go for a run. If you have the time to do that, it's always a great thing to do. Very healthy. Running is definitely one of the best exercises. I drink coffee and work. Yeah, that's what I do. I don't do the first one. I definitely do the second one though. So if you could drop in the comments, what do you do in the morning? I'd love to hear your morning routine. And learning English is all about listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Those are the four modalities. So even watching this lesson, you're listening, obviously. And if you're reading along with me, you're reading, obviously. I don't know if you're actually getting the practice speaking, especially if you're in a house where everyone is speaking your native language with you, and then you go to work and everyone at work is speaking your same native language as you. You're not really able to practice any English, but you can always just speak to your phone and then send me the recording. I'll definitely be able to judge you and give you any type of feedback necessary to help support you with that speaking. But just writing your answer in the comments also will equate to writing. If you prefer to write on loose leaf or on a post-it or index card, feel free to do that as well. And you can also send me that, and I'm able to grade, mark it up, and give you written feedback as well. Why? Because I love doing this stuff. I've been doing it for 22 years. All right, so we have activity 1. I'm excited about it. Are you excited about it? I hope you are. So I'm not going to give you the responses here, but again, if you can type it in the comments or in the chat and answer those questions 1 through 5, you could just put in 1 and then you can write out the proper form of the verb. Or if you really want practice writing, you could definitely write all of these sentences down in their entirety. That would be fine too. But if you're using a piece of paper or a loose leaf, feel free to write it down and send me a picture as well. I'm going to my other videos do have my email, but in the description I will be leaving my email just so some of you who wish to participate in this can do that as well. All right. Number 1, she blank breakfast at 7 a.m. What do we have to do to this word in parentheses? There she is eating breakfast, but eating would be present progressive. Right now, we're working on simple present, the most basic form. What do we have to do to this verb, eat? That's in parentheses. Number 2, they blank vegetables. Now we have a negative form here, not like. Since we're talking about they, what do we have to do on this blank to show that they are not a big fan of vegetables? What word do we have to add in here, or words? That's a hint. Or words do we have to add on that blank line to talk about this group and vegetables and them not enjoying it? Number 3, my sister blank the piano every day. My sister blank the piano every day. The verb here is play. We have my sister being the subject. Whenever you see this, you can always go back and figure out, who is my sister? Is my sister represented by I? Is it represented by you, by we, they, he, she, it? Which one would my sister represent? Once you can figure that out, it'll be easier for you to figure out what you have to do to this basic form of the verb, play. I blank English on weekends. I blank English on weekends. So the verb here is study. What do we have to do to the word study to make this sentence a complete, simple present tense example? Now, a little hint, we may not have to do anything to the verb. Depending on the subject in these examples, the verb may already be in the correct form. And number 5, blank video games. We have you play in parentheses. So we just have to form it here on the blank line. Don't forget your capital Y. We're going to say you, and then I'm not going to give you the answer for the verb. I already gave you the answer for the subject. Please figure that out and then put it in the comments. All right, we have some more examples. Question number 6. I blank breakfast at 8 a.m. So it's similar to our last example, but instead of she, now we're talking about I. So the subject changed. First person, and here, third person singular. So the verb definitely would have to change. He blank vegetables. He blank vegetables. He is not a big fan of vegetables. So in the simple present tense, what can we say for he to make this sentence a true simple present example. My brother blank football every Sunday. My brother blank football every Sunday. This is just like our my sister example, but this time we're talking about a brother. So we would have to figure out which pronoun we're using to see if this verb needs to change. And if it does need to change, how do we need to change it? So is my brother going to be I, you, we, they, he, she, or it? If I sound a little nervous, it's just because I hate speaking to myself. But I just wanted to do this pop-up class because a few people told me that they would be free at this time and you didn't know about it. So it's okay if you're not free. But if you do want me to do more pop-up classes like this, you know what to do. Just hit me up. You could either text me or you can email me. My mom blank English every evening. So now instead of I blank English every evening, we're talking about my mom. We're doing the same thing as my brother and my sister. We're trying to figure out which pronoun we can use for mom. Once we figure that out, we know what to do with this verb study. We know if we're going to add anything to it or if it's going to stay the same. And then you have you blank watch, blank, you watch TV every night. Blank, you watch TV every night. It's a question mark here. So we have to change this sentence into a question. So which one of let me go back. The same thing for number 5, by the way. It wasn't a sentence or a statement, you play video games. We would have to figure out which question word do we use to form this into a proper question. So I apologize if I didn't make that clearer the first time, but hopefully, if you do get an opportunity to work on these, you're able to go back and change that. So number 5 and number 10 are actually questions that we're using. And let's go back to the examples. We need to use do and does for questions. Depending on the subject, are we using do or does? We see in this example, if we're talking about the pronoun you, that's you, the second person, we needed do, right? So do you like pizza? But here's you again. Here's you again. We need to form those into questions. All right, so that was a really good hint that I gave you. Maybe too much of a hint, but again, if you're struggling with this, I'm glad if I'm able to help you. Again, why do we use the simple present? Talking about routines, right? We talked about that all day today. So now we're really hammering it in. We're going to make sure that you understand when we're talking about habits or routines, we use the simple present in English. I go to the gym every morning. I go to work every night. Those are routines that you do. We use simple present. If you want to say something that is true, money is green in America. That is a true statement. Money is green. Money can be green. So stating facts, we also use the simple present to state facts and express opinions. I like chocolate cake. All right, so now I want you to create your own sentences about your daily routine. Again, please put that in the chat or in the comments. Very basic, simple routine, simple present. I wake up at 7 a.m. as an example. If you want to take this example, feel free to, and then just change the time. What time do you wake up in the morning? So you can say, I wake up at, and then whatever time you wake up, you could put that time in if it's not 7 a.m. If it is 7 a.m., sorry, you cannot use my example. I just need you to change it up a little bit so you're able to do some type of work, right? I don't just want you stealing all my work. I drink coffee and read the news. If you drink coffee and do something else, just take this read the news, scratch it off, put a blank there, and then let us know, what do you do in the morning as a routine along with drinking coffee? And I start work at 9 a.m. If you start work at a different time, you can definitely take this example and then change the time to the actual time that you start work. And if you don't work, what do you do during the day? Try to form that into a simple present statement. What do you do during the day? All right, so I'm going to leave this on for about 1 minute here so we can correct the mistakes. If you need more time, feel free to press pause and give yourself enough time to do this. You have to try to spot and correct the mistakes in these three sentences. Each of these sentences have an error, a mistake related to simple present. And all you need to do is try to figure out what the mistake is. And then, if you want some real writing practice, just write down that sentence again in the correct form. All right, so I'm going to leave that on for about a minute. All right, hopefully that's enough time to give you for answering these questions. She go to the gym every day. What would be the correct form, or what is the mistake in that sentence? He don't play football on weekends. Again, a lot of my people, this is how we speak, especially to our friends. It is incorrect when we say that. He don't do this, he don't do that. Of course, if you're with your friends and family, it's definitely okay to speak however makes you feel comfortable or whatever way you wish. But if you're trying to speak in a professional sense, maybe at work or at school, he don't play football on weekends is not going to cut it. I gets up at 6 a.m. Right? That is an error. Some of you thought it was correct. It is not correct. All right. So it's always fun to listen to different people from different places, use the English language, because as you know, English and all languages really, it's really all about culture. And a lot of different cultures, may not be speaking in the most professional or proper way. And I could leave it at that. So some key takeaways. Again, the simple present tense. I think you can actually say this by now because we've said it so many times. What is the simple present tense used for? Please let me know in the comments. What are the three things that simple present tense are used for? Add s or es for he, she, and it. We use do and does for negatives and for questions. For example, you do not like English. He does not like math. If you do not like English, I'm sorry. I love it so much. And keep practicing, right? Keep practicing, practicing, practicing. There are a lot of examples that you can work with in this lesson that we did today. All you need to do is post on your wall or maybe on your phone. You can post the subject pronouns I, you, we, they, and then, skip a line or two for the other three: he, she, it. And then when you're off to work, or if you're walking around your house, or if you're just strolling in the park, have that chart on your phone or that's hanging up, and then try to look around in your environment and practice figuring out the I and the verb and what's happening around you in simple present tense. And then once you find someone, let's say someone's walking their dog, you can say he walks his dog. Change that subject he into she, into it, into you, into we, into I, into they, with the same actual verb and what's happening with that person. Just change it up in your head, have some fun with it, walk around in your environment, and that's how you practice simple present tense. If you do that every day, I guarantee you after maybe a week, you will have mastered it. All right. With that said, if there's no one in the chat, which right now, oh, it does look like someone's here. Do you want to stay quiet or do you want to say something? Do you have a question? Did you enjoy the lesson? All right. So I had the floor open for some questions, but it looks like our one student here is very shy, very quiet, just like me. I'm a little nervous. She's a little nervous, but either way, I know we learned a lot, and hopefully you learn a lot catching this replay. All right. If you did like this video and you found it helpful, you know what to do. Doesn't cost you a thing. Just press the like button. YouTube likes that. It'll help me out. It'll help you out. Maybe it'll help someone else out who's having a lot of trouble with simple present tense. Leave a comment. It helps push things out into the algorithm. That's what they say. And then of course, if you don't speak English and you would like to learn English, I teach free English classes. Why do I teach free English classes? It's not for clout. It's not for money. I actually have a full-time job that I really love. I just love teaching. And here I am on YouTube trying to spread my knowledge all across the world. So please look at the playlist for entering an immersion if you did like this video, and you will see another simple present lesson in there. And I'm gonna probably do some more of these just because this is the most simple and basic form of speaking English that you can do. And even if you're an advanced learner, practicing simple present can help you with your fluency, can help you. A lot of you want to become more fluent. It can help you with your fluency. It can also help you with your vocabulary if that's what you want to do. Learn a new word on dictionary.com. Take that word, throw it in the simple present tense chart that I talked to you about, and I guarantee you, you will become more fluent. All right. All right. With that said, thanks for coming to class, and I appreciate you. See you next lesson.